Hey, it's Ari, just back from the ACM Aerospace Alley Tradeshow, celebrating the worldwide unique cluster of aerospace manufacturers we have right here in Connecticut. I had the opportunity to talk to many friends, new and old, about what's going on in their business, what's going on around manufacturing Connecticut, and at the trade show itself. I know you're going to enjoy these compilation episodes. A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari. Here we go with Rob Friedland, CEO of Columbia Manufacturing. Rob, thanks so much for joining us at the ACM Trade Show this afternoon.
Great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, you having a good show?
Yeah, so far. Good morning. Good. Got the team here, so it's been great.
Nice. Well, before we kind of get into it, Rob, Made in America podcast, start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
So Columbia, 41-year-old company. We've been making formed sheet metal, complex assemblies for engines since our founding. So it's really been something that the company's grown up on. We're really experts in forming sheet metal, welding it to forgings and castings, and creating complex assemblies that it's not totally unique in the industry. Certainly something that we specialize in and have really focused on it and grown the business from it.
Nice. And is your first time at the ACM Aerospace Alley Trade Show?
Oh no, we've been here annually.
Annually, so, big fans.
Yeah.
Why do you guys invest the time?
Well, I mean, I think this is both a mix of our supply chain that we use a lot of different either raw material suppliers or outside service suppliers that are here. It's a good chance to see and network with them all in one place. Additionally, we get our own customers that come in, or potentially new customers. It's not always a great area for bringing, because we know the majority of the local guys. But it's good to mix with them and see them in one spot. And then what they do in the morning with bringing in the kids and being able to network, because really getting these kids interested in STEM careers and pathways that are going to help us all out, because everyone's looking for people, and you really need to start early and get these guys interested in kind of what manufacturing is all about.
How are you guys thinking about addressing the workforce challenges that all manufacturers are kind of facing in terms of just looking for new people, new blood to bring into the businesses to support growth and, head off some of the impending retirements in the years ahead? How are you guys thinking about that?
So there's a couple of things. I mean, first of all, where we are in the state is a little bit off the beaten path, out in the eastern part of the state. So we try to be a presence in the local community, which works for us, maybe more so than in some of the areas where there's maybe 20 or 30 different people that look like us. Mm-hmm. So that's one area. The other thing is really building off of our people and the networking off of our people, because they're the best. We want people with the right attitude. Certainly we want the skill set, but we want the willingness to learn, the flexibility, and those kinds of things. When you get them through people in your own business, are really the ones who can judge for that character, and that's a really great building block that we find. And then lastly, we're really looking at community college outreach. We're out near Quinnebog, we're out near some of the technical high schools, so we can look to tap into that more, and we're really growing that effort right now. We've brought some people on recently who have familiarity with that. So those are really important areas for us as we grow into the next several years.
When you talk about engaging in the local community, it's really interesting, Rob. It sort of harkens back to the almost like the yesteryear manufacturing, right? The company, the town company, or the company town, or whatever. How do you guys think about doing that? I mean, how do you engage in the community in a positive way to help kind of drive those connections and help you find people?
So we will donate to the local food bank and those kinds of things, which are fairly, I'd say, obvious. But being one of the largest employer in Columbia, which is a very small town, but we're right there in Windham County, and we're next to Willimantic. So we've just really pushed this more aggressively over the last 6 months. There was a program in Hebron called the Steeplechase, which again raised money for different local charities. So we're trying to sponsor teams for that, or advertising in the local hockey flyer that the local high schools play at. Just a way to get our name in front of more and more people, maybe some kids, but a lot of those kids' parents that are going to see the name of the company, maybe go, lead them to the website, and perhaps start that dialogue that we could have with them to potentially bring them on board, including internships. We used to not do a lot with high school and below because it take a lot of effort, but I think we've learned over these last couple of years you have to broaden. You just just for no other reason, you're competing, once they're graduating, you're competing with a lot of different people. So if you can get them in earlier and they start working for you part-time, or you expose them to things, then we're hoping that that's going to be a better pathway to secure them coming on board as a full-time employee.
Have you found a lot of openness from parents and students to want to do stuff like that?
I think some to be determined, but I think, certainly we're seeing more and more parents, we want to do, I know there's been others who have done this. Next year we're going to do an open house where not just do we want to invite the kids at the local schools, but invite their parents as well. So show them that, continue to show that the mantra that manufacturing is not this, default, only if you can't do anything else career. You can really make a career out of it. If you're not going to go, or you don't want to go, or you can't afford to go to college, there's still really good pathways where you can earn a good living. And it's important to just continue to show that it's it's not the manufacturing vision that people still have from the 1950s, what those factories used to look like.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit, and we hear that over and over again on the podcast, and certainly have heard it a lot today. That the manufacturing of 2021 isn't even the manufacturing of 1991, let alone the manufacturing of 1961.
Correct.
Really important to get out there. Do you guys subscribe to kind of engaging on social media at all that try and kind of connect with either students or younger generation or their parents?
So we do, and I will say, we're not great at it, but we're learning. I think it's
best thing to do is to get started, right?
Well, we do, and we have we do things on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. It's the effort to keep it up, right? Because if you do a post and then you don't post anything for 3 months, well then you're not
get
fooling
the job
anybody.
done. Yeah.
So, but we're doing more and more of that, and we try to do monthly, or at least quarterly newsletters and monthly press releases and blogs and some different things. And our marketing people are really good at kind of helping us stay on message when there's small little nuggets of information that you're not going to do maybe an old traditional full press release, getting it out on social media, getting something you can put together that we can send off to our customers or send them links to something off our website. Yeah, we're doing more and more of that. And that's the way you talk to the world. So as much as Zoom has transformed people the way they interact during COVID time, I think social media is not a COVID thing. It's been around, but it just continues to take on a new life. And let's face it, not my generation, but the generation following me and my kids, that's how they talk to the world. It's so you have to speak their language, otherwise you're not going to be listened to. So
yeah, I'm really glad that you said that, Rob. One of the kicks I've sort of been on in talking to people is we understand we've got a workforce challenge, right? It's in manufacturing in Connecticut, it's in manufacturing on the U.S., and it's in a lot of other industries too. So there's not just the competition for talent in this industry, but across industries. And it seems to me that we gotta, why do people rob banks? Because that's where the money is. So If we want to reach people, we got to go where they are, right? We've got to go to the platforms that they're going to be on, not the platforms that we'd be on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. I mean, it used to be about, here's my, just getting the website up. I'm old enough that I remember before websites, and then it was like, all right, we got to do this website thing. So you kind of cobbled something together and you put it up there, but it wasn't meant to be really a communications tool as much as a presence on this thing called the World Wide Web. And then as things have marched on, it just continues to grow, and you have to grow with it, and you have to not take it seriously is probably not the right way to say it, but you have to appreciate what it can do and the messaging that you can do through it as a portal to both your customers, your community, and your potential employees.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I found so many people feel like it's a burden, but there's so many tremendous opportunities. I mean, if you go back to the days where you put an ad in the paper, or maybe put out a flyer, on a bulletin board at a community college or a high school or a college, you can't really, it's hard to stand out in 2D black and white paper. And I'm old enough to remember the classified ads where it was like, a half an inch was like $500 in the Sunday paper. And basically you just had to abbreviate words, right, to just fit it in there. And now, if you think about the platforms we're on, you can take your phone, which everyone's got in their pocket, make a video and really engage and get the personality of, your business of Columbia Manufacturing out there and try and find some of those right people. So it's not just a burden. I think there's some real opportunity if we're willing to reach out and seize it.
Yeah, and I think those are some of the elements that are going to separate the winners and losers, and the companies that are sort of stuck in the old. You're not going to continue to appeal to that next generation of employees. So you can't just, you have to both walk the walk and talk. You have to do more than just try to, put a nice paint job on it. But it's it's definitely something we want to do.
The nice part about this generation too, trying to pull out some other positives, is that they don't seem to care too much about production value, and they don't need length. We don't have to put together an hour-long movie, that's a film by Steven Spielberg to get their interest. A little selfie 30-second video seems to get the job done, which is kind of nice.
Right. And we're looking at doing some of that with some short advertisements and doing some stuff where we, put them out in there, on impressions out in through the right networks on sporting events or whatever those things may be. So, yeah, it's all new, and you're learning, and you got to surround yourself.
Are you guys looking at, or are you thinking about that recruiting as much of a marketing effort as it is an HR effort?
Yes, I mean, it's certainly, we certainly have thought about it first and foremost as an HR effort, because we can target counties, and it's amazing what you can actually, a little scary sometimes, what you can actually target with specific advertising. But it's also something that we want to use on our website, or something if it's catchy, with some of what we're thinking of with, you get a jet, a military fighter jet or something swooping through some footage in the first 2 or 3 seconds of a video, it's attention getting. So then you have somebody who sees the logo, or they go to the website. I mean, you can build a lot of relationships in ways that way. So yeah, we're seeing it certainly first as a recruiting tool, but more than that.
That's awesome, man. So thinking about the afternoon here, the rest of the trade show, Rob, what's on your agenda for the afternoon?
So I think we've had a busy booth. I mean, I think we're getting a good mix so far of our, like I said, our suppliers that are here, as well as maybe some new suppliers that we don't always use. So it's good. I've got my outside services guy here, so it's his job to kind of ferret all that out. So he's very active. And then my head of sales is here as well to talk to prospective customers as well as existing customers, because we know some of them are here. So I think it'll be good, and interacting with the ACM folks is always good, and like Colin and other people within the state. So it's a really good area to catch up with some old friends, and meet some new people.
Great opportunity to get to the show, and it's been really fun talking to you, Rob, getting to know you a little bit. And I love your approach towards this recruiting and being really active about it and looking at these different initiatives. And I'm glad you shared that. I really think that the whole spirit of this ACM, the group and the show, is to share information. I think that was a really great share. I think people are going to get a lot from that.
Great.
Thanks, Rob.
Awesome. Appreciate it very much. Thank you very much.
Hey, it's Ari. Very excited to have our first guest of the day for the ACM Trade Show right here in Hartford, Connecticut, Dr. Karen Wosczyna-Birch, Director of the College of Technology. Karen, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, great. It's an honor and super exciting to be here. Lots of energy. You can
absolutely.
Feel it.
Pleasure to have you on. Listen, it's the Made in America podcast on the road, so we're still going to start off with the same two questions, though, Karen. What do you make, and why do you make it?
I would say that I make disruptions. I'm kind of one of those individuals that would like to accomplish things that are not, done in a regular way. So a lot of my experiences in higher education is to say, how can we respond, in this case, to industry needs and maybe not have to follow the old, 2-year process in terms of trying to put programs in place and, just get things moving quickly.
Get them moving quickly. Why do you do it?
It's very rewarding. I love teaching. I love students. I love just being able to change lives and really being able to prepare students for careers that they've never thought of, which is why I'm involved in manufacturing. So.
Well, Karen, I think some people don't really know what the College of Technology is, what it has to do with the state of Connecticut, what it has to do with manufacturing. but I think it's really important. I mean, workforce is such a critical component of our manufacturing future, and the College of Technology plays an important role in helping develop that workforce. Can you tell the audience about it?
Sure. So we say that the College of Technology is one of the best kept secrets in Connecticut, without a doubt. It was actually created when the technical colleges were merged with the community colleges in the 1990s, and is now actually under the administration of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities, specifically at Tungus Community College in terms of my home. But the joke used to be that my office was my car, because I literally travel around the state. So what it does is it provides a stackable credential model for students with different entry and exit points so that they can have short-term certificates in engineering and technology, get right into the workforce, but those certificates can actually be used towards an associate's degree that seamlessly articulate to bachelor's degrees. So we're really looking at access and also trying to make sure that individuals can get into the workforce, and especially, as you know, with the need in manufacturing, that is really a high priority at this point.
Stackable credentials, let me say, I think that they're so important, but can you talk about why they're so critical and what the difference is between, an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, stackable credentials? Like, what are our stackable credentials, and why are they so important?
Okay, stackable credentials are important. First of all, I do want to set the tone that we're really working in partnership with industry. So I know sometimes people stereotype education that we're in a silo, we don't talk to anybody outside of our offices or our brick and mortar buildings, and that's not the case. With COT, we work very closely with industry, have a great partnership with ACM that is hosting this Aerospace Alley, but we want to make sure that what we're teaching is preparing students for the workforce. So a stackable credential just, again, responds to just different needs students might have. Not everybody wants to go right into a bachelor program for 4 years. Some students need a job quickly. So we have short-term 7-8-week programs that give them basic skills in manufacturing. So hopefully they can get employed and then continue at the community college for an associate's degree or a longer-term certificate. So it's just really career paths.
So if I was thinking about a career in manufacturing, and I was thinking about, how would I go about getting a stackable credential? What does it look like? Where do I go? How do I start? What does that look like?
Okay, so, and before I jump into that, I do want to say that our College of Technology and the stackable credential model has been nationally recognized, and we received this summer a $7.5 million grant from the National Science Foundation to be the next generation manufacturing center for community colleges across the nation. So wow. I do want to point that out because it's quite significant in terms of the impact that we'll have in Connecticut under that new center. With that being said...
Well, hold on. Before you move on, I just want to take a step back because I did know that and I wanted to get there.
I jumped ahead.
No. I appreciate that. I just wanted to take that pause because it is so important. Generating the workforce for today and for the future is so critical to Connecticut's success. And I think, you made the point earlier that the College of Technology, or COT, is such a hidden secret, which is doing us no favor. So here we are trying to get that secret out, right? A secret no longer. Right. But it's a secret that's generating results and being recognized for it. And so important for business leaders and for people that are here in the state to know that we have the resources, both in terms of the ideas, both in terms of the physical plants and the structure, which we're going to get to, both in terms of the programs we're going to talk about now, and we're being recognized for our success, and we're bringing in funding, federal funds in this form right now, $7.5 million, to help build that pipeline even greater. So it's just so tremendous for the companies that are here in Connecticut and for the people that are looking to get into manufacturing and find great careers. Just so exciting anyway. So I didn't want to run past that without getting a chance to really celebrate and really also say thank you, because I think that's really great work. So that being said, let's go back to the future here. So what is a stackable credential? And if I'm someone that's interested in getting in manufacturing, how would I access it?
Okay, so if you were even interested in pursuing one of these certificates or ultimately an associate's/bachelor's degree, you could go to any one of our 12 community colleges. We have actually, in I'd say 2014, modeled after Asnuntuck, which is really the community college that is, I would say, the model for Connecticut relative to manufacturing programs. If you've never been there, you need to go take and do a tour because it's just fabulous.
The advanced I just wanted to add the advanced, because I am so proud of it, the Advanced Manufacturing Center at Asnuntuck is absolutely
it's amazing.
Unbelievable. The amount of technology that's in there, I mean, it's just unbelievable, from the different types of machines, bridge ports to 7-axis CNC machines, computer labs, additive manufacturing capabilities. I mean, real live stuff students can work on, and it's just so exciting that if you're a manufacturer here in Connecticut or someone that wants to get into it, what we can do there. And it's not the only center we have in the state.
No,
but go ahead, Karen.
And I do want to point out Mary Bidwell, who couldn't be here today, actually is the Dean of Manufacturing and also is a liaison with the COT with me for manufacturing across the state. And we work under President Jim Lambella, who is so passionate about manufacturing. So I have to mention them because you can't, this is a village that does all these initiatives,
Yep.
and we couldn't accomplish what we do without that. So with that being said, the programs, basically all 12 community colleges have some type of manufacturing right now. In fact, Capital just put in a manufacturing 7-week program that they kicked off this summer, but it's different degrees of engagement. So again, going back to Asnuntuck, there's 3 other centers very similar in terms of what they offer. But everybody right now across the state is got something in place to get you started. So I would suggest, where you're located, what would be accessible. Connecticut's not that big of a state.
And we've got 12 great community college
seriously.
campuses. All of them have some manufacturing. So if you're in Hartford, Bridgeport, Enfield, New London, anywhere in the state, there should be a community college near you, not very far away. And most of them, if not all of them, are on bus lines as well as available for car and parking in New Haven and everywhere else. So yeah, that's really exciting. What does the future look like in terms of the engagement with the College of Technology and the manufacturing needs for the future? I mean, people that kind of been following this as I have know that we've got thousands of manufacturing jobs that are open today.
Exactly.
Where manufacturing is growing again, which is fantastic. I'm confident that we'll soon surpass the heights we had in 2019 pre-pandemic, and then going beyond that. And of course, as the workforce ages, it's no secret that the manufacturing workforce across the country, and Connecticut's no different, is aging. And so between replacements and growth, thousands and thousands of manufacturing jobs need to be filled every year. What's the COT doing to sort of make sure we're creating the employees that the employers are looking for?
Okay, so how much time do we have?
As much as you want. This is so important.
Okay, so I think what's super exciting, what Connecticut really has stepped up to the plate by actually creating a manufacturing czar, Colin Cooper, and you probably have heard about that position.
Of course.
And we're working also with the Office of Workforce Strategies, Kelly Valaris, and we have right now a manufacturing strategic plan that's just about done. It'll be released very shortly, but really trying to get everybody at the table and also industry. So working with CMC, which represents all the different manufacturing associations as well, to say we all need to be at the table and address this workforce need because it's critical, and we're still not meeting it. There's no question about it. If you read in the newspaper, there's like over 6,000 unfilled jobs. So how do we, put in more programs, make sure that everyone's at the table, that we're doing what is needed, and get individuals into the workforce. With that being said, I think a big area here is diversity. I'm very passionate about that. I think I had mentioned earlier to you off camera that I was the first female faculty at Hartford State Technical College. It was like 99.9% white males and me, so I had my own ladies' room. I didn't know what that meant until, things progressed. But with that being said, we've moved the needle a little bit, but nowhere near where it needs to be in terms of underrepresented populations like women, like different ethnicities pursuing manufacturing. So what do we do? As part of our National Science Foundation grant funding has helped with creating profiles, little snippets, and I'll look at females as my example. We have a whole series of profiles that are compiled into a DVD or on YouTube called You Belong. But what we do is we actually have videos, about 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, of individuals that are in the manufacturing workforce, also looking at diversity relative to ethnicity too. But one features a welder, another one features basically a machinist. We have another one that is working as a CNC operator, all the way up to somebody who has a PhD in aerospace engineering. So, what's going to make a difference to all the people that are here today, these, high school students that are excited about manufacturing, is they have to see themselves in these positions, so that if they even look at me, it's like, maybe I'm their mother, maybe grandmother in some cases, right? But they need to see people that look like them, that are pursuing these careers, and they say, hey, I could do that too. This is very exciting.
Yeah, that's so true. And, it's funny, I think, when we see what we see, we believe is possible. If we see someone who looks like us doing something, all of a sudden that opens up a new door. And I wonder if you've got any thoughts about, and if the College of Technology or community colleges in general are doing enough or are going to be doing more to reach out to some of those underrepresented communities, and whether it's gender, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's socioeconomic class, to really say, hey, there's a real opportunity here in the manufacturing of the future.
Oh, I definitely think, in some ways, the community college is the perfect higher ed organization to be doing this, because our students generally, I think 60% are female. We have a high percentage of, African Americans, Hispanics. We have 2 community colleges that are designated HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions. So we already have the diversity at our door in our classrooms. So it's a matter of even internally, making sure they know of the opportunities in manufacturing. We still deal with the perception that manufacturing is dirty, dingy, dark, the 3Ds.
The 3Ds.
Yet it's amazing when you look at what is being done now with the integration of things being automated, using computers, the whole idea of mechatronics, even welding. There's an awful lot now with welding that, you still have to do the bead and all, but we have simulators, and some of that also, is now automated versus doing everything by hand.
Yeah, I always like to say it's not dark, dirty, and dingy. It's lean, green, and clean.
There you go.
and people need to understand that, right? And it is totally different than it was in the past. And even there's a really cool welding simulator at Asnuntuck, matter of fact.
It's fabulous.
It is. It's this digital welder, and it lets you practice welding in the desert, underwater.
Right.
It's just so amazing, the technologies that we have. If you're an employer that's either here at the ACM trade show or just listening to this after the fact and thinking about, wow, I didn't really know we had a College of Technology. How could I get in touch with, I don't know, is it you? Is it Mary? Who is it to say, hey, I would love to get an intern. I'd love to be on the list of people that would be looking for a position, or I'd like to help you understand what we're looking for. Who do they reach out to? Like, how do we bring those communities together?
Well, I would say certainly reach out to me. We do have a website, and we also have a website for our center, Next Generation Manufacturing. And I certainly think any of the directors of manufacturing, Mary would be wonderful. But if they wanted to reach out to me first initially, I could certainly make the connections. But again, we're doing a lot statewide. Part of the strategic plan that I mentioned is also addressing the Governor's Workforce Council strategic plan as well, to take a look at what has been identified as really priorities. So I think we're in a very unique position right now in Connecticut, that people are at the table together and we are talking, because that's the only way we're going to make a difference and really address that workforce.
Listen, I agree, and I think that's something that needs to be celebrated. So many people remember, just like it was the old dark, dirty, dingy days of manufacturing, people remember or maybe have forgotten that not so long ago, we didn't have the Connecticut Manufacturers Collaborative where all of the groups came together. We didn't have the Workforce Board and the initiative to bring public, private, education all together to find out how can we solve some of these challenges. So I think you're so right to bring up this idea that we are working together. Could we do more? absolutely, there's always more to be done. But boy, we've come a long way, and it would be a shame,
Exactly.
not to celebrate some of that. So I really appreciate it, Karen. I think you guys are doing some terrific work at the community colleges. I'm really proud to play some small part in helping get the word out about it.
Appreciate it. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, please, the Made in America podcast, we'd be happy to connect. We'll definitely put information in the show notes. Is there any website you want to plug before we wrap it up?
I think, again, go to our College of Technology website, but also the nextgenerationmanufacturing.org. It's nextgenmfg.org, because actually that particular website is really representing all of what's going on, and even not just Connecticut, but even on a national basis. And we welcome, hopefully people are going to sign up for our programs. They're great, they're careers, they're making a difference in so many lives. So we would just hope that, this podcast gets the word out and we have more students, graduating and pursuing manufacturing.
We're going to make that happen. Karen, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks so much.
All right, we got Mark Lloyd, president of A1 Machining on. Mark, thank you so much for sitting down with us this afternoon.
No problem.
So listen, before we kind of talk a little ACM and a little A1 machining and stuff like that, got to start off with the Made in America patented first two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
Yeah, so predominantly we stick to the basics of turning and milling aerospace gas turbine parts. 20 inches up to about 150. So fairly large and not too many people in that marketplace. Hopefully providing the customer with quick turn time and where necessary, quick development.
Nice. Tell me a little bit about your engagement with ACM, Mark. We're here at the trade show. Is this your first ACM trade show?
No, came 2 years ago. A little bit lighter, but pleased to see how many people have turned up, and always good to see some old faces and re-interact with them.
Yeah, it is kind of nice. This is the first large event I've been to post-COVID, and I mean,
right.
It maybe is slightly less attended than 2 years ago, but not massively.
No, I thought the amount of students this morning was impressive, and they were very interested as well, perhaps more so than I remember. So that was really good, and some very searching questions they asked.
Yeah, were you at the booth the whole time?
No, but my guys were. They did a good job answering the questions and interacting with the students.
Yeah, it was kind of impressive. What was I'm just curious, maybe share with the folks who maybe aren't here or who watch this later, what were some of those questions? And it sounds like it was a positive interaction. Give me some of the readout on that.
Obviously some of it was, the difference between turning and milling. Fairly straightforward, one the part turns and the other the cutting tool turns. But they were interested in how we determine the cutters that we used, the inserts, what the differences were, and so it was quite useful to have those interactions. They were very intelligent questions.
What's your perspective? There's a wide range of students that come through here, right? I mean, anything from middle school to community college, tech high schools, and regular high schools in between. Sort of what's your take on why it's important to invest your staff's time to be here and engage with some kids who won't be hitting the workforce for 5-6 years?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the earlier they get to understand about opportunities outside of school, I always reflect back and really I was extremely naive when I joined the workforce. It was quite a shock to the system, and I think had there been more opportunities like this, back in the day, then I just see that them seeing what's available out there, when they're all on social media and it's all fast cars and all the rest of it, it's how are you going to get there to be able to buy the nice things if you're not going to be working perhaps in an office or doing something that you can get your teeth into. There's a lot of practical skills that come along with this, but at the same time, technology has come a long way, and computers and software and all the rest have a big part to play. So,
yeah, I'd say a lot's happened in turning and milling since A1's founding in 1979.
Yes, just a little,
just a touch.
Yeah.
So when you had said before, just interested, you had mentioned sort of your personal experience. You came out hitting the workforce. It was a little bit of a shock to the system, a little splash of cold water to the face. What did you mean by that, and how do you think engaging with the students helps kind of change that approach?
Well, as I say, I started, I like to think, as child labour. I was 16 years old back in the UK. I was fortunate to do an apprenticeship, and I think that gave me a great opportunity, and certainly from my perspective, we want to get to a position at A1 where we can bring a young person on board, give them the opportunity to learn the various facets of manufacturing, to give them a rounded experience, and then they can choose where they want to be that can further the business. I need the next me. And I think, having that progression through an organisation with a backup of college education, which can be done hand in hand, will be beneficial, and it's certainly useful for them to experience things like this and see the really interesting stuff that goes on in Connecticut.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And manufacturing in particular, one of the great things about manufacturing from a career perspective is it's one of those few careers where you actually get to sort of physically make something,
right,
and you get to turn something into something else. And so it's a tactile work experience that probably is better described by experiencing it than reading it on a piece of paper.
Right, for sure. And I think to the point you made, having the opportunity, we bought a few samples of some of the things that we do, and being able to point out, what the material started out like and what we turned it into, certainly garnered a lot of interest from the kids.
Yeah. When you guys think about your strategy for workforce development, how do you think about that? And just curious, maybe share. It's a big topic at the show, this year,
Sure.
Coming out of COVID, and curious your guys thinking around that.
Yeah, well, I think certainly one of the facets that we're focused on is from an engineering perspective. If we can ensure that the documentation and information relative to the parts we're making can be as clear as possible, that will go a long way to being able to bring people from the community colleges, the Asnuntucks, and be able to integrate a lot easier. Certainly with the parts that we're dealing with at the moment, it takes a long time to be able to just be left to your own devices to make parts. So we're trying to make that transition a lot easier. Certainly we're scrambling a little bit at the moment to reorganize ourselves based on the current situation.
Meaning what?
Well, we had a large downturn in business, so we're doing a few things, and it's not giving us the opportunity at the moment that I'd like, because as I mentioned earlier, one of the things we want to do is to be able to bring somebody from an Asnuntuck and develop them through the shop. And there's certain things that it takes time, both from a managerial perspective and an oversight point of view, to do it properly. And I think we're probably 12 months away from being in that position. We were very close to starting a program pre-COVID, but as circumstances dictated, that didn't quite work out. But the intent will be to get to that stage.
Commercial aerospace downturn kind of put a hurting on a lot of that.
Yeah.
And what are you guys seeing? I mean, that's another big topic, right? I mean, things everyone's talking about.
Oh yeah.
It seems like it's on the rebound. Probably not rebounding as fast as everybody would like, but
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of positivity, but not a lot of orders. So everybody's feeling the same thing. It's going to happen. But I think, to your point, it's not perhaps happened as quickly as we'd anticipated. My feelings are that we're not going to even get back remotely to the position we were 2019 till could be as late as 2025 from a volume perspective. That being said, there's certain things we're doing to position ourselves to ensure that we have the capability, capacity to be able to flex if things should, as aerospace does. It's feast or famine. Mm-hmm. So we expect things to pick up, and it's making sure we're ready for when it does.
What did you take away from the talk at lunch today? There's always some conversation about rebound. Obviously, the message I think is a little bit mixed.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, it reinforces what most people have been seeing. Certainly, organisations that have had large defence backlogs have been less impacted than those that focus predominantly on civil. When the market contracted, my opinion is, the OEMs kept their own shops busy, and then they'll look to outsource as things pick up. Certainly, I'm thinking end of next year to early part of 2023 will be when we start seeing more traction.
What do you think are the leading indicators do you see? I mean, look, there's obvious, right? Sort of passenger miles is probably one of them.
Right.
Route reactivations,
Yeah. No, I mean, I think internal flights have obviously picked up significantly. Airports seem busier, etc. But European travel's only just started this last week, and I think until the world opens up a little bit more, it's going to slow down, particularly like twin aisle aircraft and therefore certain engine configurations from rebounding as quickly as others have.
Is that you're just thinking that the industry in general is going to need that, or is that a particular to A1 because you guys are on more of the work on more of the platforms that are on the twin aisles, or?
I think definitely respect to A1. It's the impacting factor. Certainly, we're not letting the grass grow and are trying to diversify in a number of areas. Some would say day late, dollar short, but when your backlog's bigger than you can cope with, sometimes it's difficult to look in other markets.
Yeah, look, and I mean, not to make excuses, but history is littered with companies that weren't happy with what they were doing when the going was good, and they decided to take their eye off the ball and say, maybe, what if we, the aerospace is hot, we're doing great, but it's cyclical. So what if we get into medical devices to sort of offset, and then you sort of take your foot off the gas a little bit, you start losing some of the momentum, probably not going to make that turn very easily. Next thing you know, the downturn hits, and now you're really kicking. I mean, it's hindsight 2020.
Exactly. I think for the most part, whilst we always want to be forward looking and preparing for the future, some things things happen.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think 2019 was a big thing happen.
Yeah. I think I've heard someone say once shit happens, and I think March of 2019 qualifies as shit. I think I'd say that.
Yeah. No, if my wife watches this, she'll be impressed that I didn't say it. Normally, I do. Yeah.
Well, you could tell your wife. I tried. I egged him on, but Mark wouldn't give in. Listen, I'm just interested. We don't get an opportunity a lot to talk to people who kind of industry folks who kind of come in new to the ecosystem. Generally, that's difficult. Most of the people that I talk to, leaders of organizations, general managers, presidents, chief financial officers, whatever, they're usually people that grew up in the business. So even if they started somewhere else, they grew up somewhere else and sort of grew up here and sort of they've been around for a while. But you've only been with A1 for 3.5 years, and while people may not have been able to tell in the microphone, your accent is not a new London; it's actual London. And so I just wonder, your perspective, maybe first on the aerospace industry in this part of the world. Here, sort of Aerospace Alley here in Connecticut and Western Mass. Let's start with that, and then I'll ask you about ACM. But what's your perspective on the aerospace industry?
Sure. I think it's certainly something you wouldn't find in the UK, is the concentration of manufacturers in the aerospace business. Certainly where I'm from, we were 12 miles from Rolls-Royce, Derby head office. So there was obviously a cluster of manufacturers around that area. Back in the day when I was in the UK, I'm not cognizant of any organisation such as the ACM for sure. So being part of it in Connecticut has certainly been helpful. And we mentioned the pandemic, but I think the work they did to distribute information, keep everybody up to date, was a godsend from my perspective, because the focus was on the business. So some of the information that they were feeding was great. It's the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah,
I wasn't have to go through.
And it was push information, not pull.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was a real positive and was indicative of the sort of organisation and the way that they try to ensure that the manufacturers are front and centre and have got the necessary to help grow the business.
How does the cluster of businesses, say up here in the Pioneer Valley, compare to the cluster that you saw, back in Derby when you're back in the UK?
I would say they're as diverse. So there are large organisations and there are small businesses such as A1 in the UK. Certainly not as when I was there, not as organised. I've seen since they've got the regional manufacturing, so it's not just aerospace, and they've got those connections. But to be focused purely on aerospace, there's nothing I'm familiar with from back home, shall we say. And it's been extremely worthwhile being a part of.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, has it been helpful getting your arms around the business? It's funny, I've been around it for a bunch of years now, and it's been very fascinating to see how much everyone knows each other. And I mean, you just go up and down these aisles and everyone's got, long histories
Right.
and long stories, and shockingly cooperative.
Very, very much so. I think, to the point you made, I was at East Tech, bumped into Glenn, who I think you're talking to later. They're the sort of people that you
Glenn?
meet.
I don't know any Glens.
Yeah, I can imagine. But again, indicative of the sort of character that you can meet through the organisation, who, despite we may compete, we may not, but more than willing to have a discussion on how things are going, what they're doing about situations. It's certainly useful, and when shit hits the fan, it's good that you're not the only one in the situation and you can bounce ideas. That's
well, I'm glad we got that on the record, because I wasn't going to end this interview till we got that. So listen, I don't want to take up all your afternoon. I know it's networking time and good opportunities for you, but I did want to bring up one point, which is, apprenticeship is something that sort of fallen in and out of favor in the U.S. for whatever reasons, and we've been trying to bring it back. Connecticut's been pushing it, and there's certainly been success stories that I've had on the podcast. But it's interesting because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you were an apprentice.
Yeah. I left school at 16 and got an apprenticeship with a company I'd never heard of called Chromalloy, and I also got offered an apprenticeship at British Rail, so making trains, and decided I'd go with Chromalloy because, well, it's aircraft engines and trains are old hat.
Right.
So yeah, I was extremely fortunate. I did 4 years there. I was employee number 9 in the UK, and did my apprenticeship, got into engineering. When I left after 15 years as the operations manager, there were 450 people there. So it gave a good indication as a small group, how it grew into a large organisation and the problems that can entail at quite an early age, but gave me a very broad spectrum exposure to all the processes for manufacturing and repairing.
And what's kind of your take on the value of apprenticeships just in general? I'm curious, look, you started off as an apprentice at the age of 16, and here you are running an aerospace company.
I think in my position, it gives an appreciation. You understand what the guy on the shop floor has to put up with, management telling you what to do all the time. You've walked a few feet in their shoes, and so you've got that empathy and understanding. And certainly, having an education is one thing, but having practical experience is worth its weight in gold. And so I think if you can combine the two, then the only inhibiting factor to their progression is them.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to have you say that. And I think, you're a great example of a success story that started off as apprenticeship. And I think it's a real huge opportunity here in Connecticut for manufacturers and aerospace manufacturers to look at apprenticeship programs as one opportunity, as well as sort of this stacked credentials,
Right.
Stuff that we've been talking about at the community colleges. So
Yeah.
glad to see you embody that in that success. Mark, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us this afternoon.
Not a problem. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct, a Compass MSP company.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.